Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to wait for all the boxes to appear here. So this morning, we have this period of time where I'm going to offer some pointers on meditation and self-inquiry. And, my intention here is to really point towards the truth of who we are, beyond name and form. And really, this is where meditation and self-inquiry converge. When we really go deep into meditation, meditation eventually, at the beginning, we may be working with these techniques, but eventually it's just being. After we recognize the awareness that is here, that is present, and there's no more need for doing in the meditation. Meditation becomes just being. And this just being is exactly the same when we have the invitation to directly experience who we are. It's that beingness, it's that I amness that we are. So at a certain point, hopefully we'll come to really understand that meditation and self-inquiry are not two different things. They're really, really complementary and really the same thing. In both, there's this clearing process. At the beginning, there's a lot of mind and body stuff. So we engage in this process at the beginning. It seems to be a process, or there's a technique or a doing, an activity, a doer. But as we proceed, this clearing happens and there's less doing. There's less of that doer. And we move from that realm of mind, that realm of doing, to just being, here. So I'm going to offer some pointers. I'm just going to kind of feel it out as I go for the next hour. Usually in these talks, I like to, once I start doing the Q&As and getting feedback, I like to kind of respond to what's happening in the group. But for right now, I'm going to just sort of give general pointers. There's certain pointers and teachings that are sort of universal, and they come up at every retreat. So I'm going to cover some of that stuff, and I may I have a favorite teaching as well, which I'll share if we have time at the end of this hour, and then we're going to go into a sit and then Q&A after that. So yeah, so for me, I'm going to just start by sharing what I feel is the most important aspect of meditation. And that'll lead into a sort of unraveling of thoughts and ideas. So for me, the most important thing is always to start with a beginner's mind. Or in other words, just being, just coming into being, recognizing being. There's actually no coming into being. There's just this recognition of presence, of awareness that is here. So when we do that, we're not filtering through memory. We're not filtering through the past. Um, Quite often, probably the biggest challenge in meditation for people, myself included, for many, many years, was to let go of knowing, let go of past experiences and of memory. Um, if we come to meditation with this knowing mind, the mind is looking for something. There's maybe a past experience where, we experience bliss, we experience freedom. So the mind is looking for it. It's like, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that peace. But that peace only came because that looker, that doer, that controller was actually able to surrender, to give up in that moment. So that mind comes back, and when we have these glimpses, these experiences, peak experiences, the mind comes back afterwards, and it says, "I did it." It takes ownership of it, and it's like, now I know. Now I know what samadhi is, or what freedom is. But this is the fundamental delusion of the mind. Um, the mind turns everything into a thought. If there's any knowing, if there's any belief or knowing about samadhi, then it's the mind. We're just in that realm of thought. But awakening and samadhi can't be a thought. It can't be a memory. It's only now. If we're filtering through that memory, um, that's delusion. That's Maya. That's what this whole game is about. Um, Waking up from this constant fixation on thoughts, what's happening in the mind and body. So there's a little story I often share, and I know some of you have heard this story before, but I like to share it, and it's about the kind of delusion that I fell into early on my path. I ended up at a Vipassana center doing a 10-day retreat, and at that time, I knew absolutely nothing about meditation. Had a beginner's mind, but I didn't understand the value of the beginner's mind at that time. I didn't realize that a beginner's mind is the gateway. It's the gateless gate. So I just had more a beginner's mind, but it wasn't. I wasn't awake at that point. So I ended up at this retreat and was doing this Vipassana body scan that they teach you at the retreat, and I just gave it wholeheartedly to this practice. Something in me just trusted at that time, and at that time my mind was really pathological. I was searching for something I wanted peace. I wanted the off button for this monkey mind, this whirlpool of the mind that was incessant at that time. And so I just kept doing this body scan. And as I mentioned yesterday, when we work with a technique, we start out with gross physical sensations, and in that technique, the technique is to just observe sensations throughout the body, remaining equanimous, having no preference for any sensation. So as I kept working with the technique, I came into the the pranic layer or the vibrational layer, the energy. And eventually there was this sort of merging that happened, which I now understand to be, it's called Savakalpa Samadhi, or in Buddhism, they talk more about the jhanas or the stages of absorption. So it was an absorption state, and it was so a collapse of subject and object. So it was very blissful. There was incredible energy. It felt like you know, it felt like love. It felt like being plugged in to this love energy of the universe, being all that is. And so it was everything. It was a peak experience. It was everything that the little self was could have asked for. But the danger was I didn't know at that time the truth of my nature. I didn't know who I was. And of course, this merged state is just a state. All states, if it's something that changes, it's part of the phenomenal world. So, of course, this state changed. There was this sense of being one with everything, and at that time, I thought, I just had a Catholic upbringing at that point, and I hadn't even studied Buddhism or anything at that point. So I just thought, oh, this is it. Like I'm like Jesus or probably Buddha. I didn't even know who Buddha was really at that time. So the delusion of the mind, there was attachment to this state, to this bliss state. So of course, when that state changed, it went from, you know, peak beautiful experience to absolute hell. Trying because feeling the loss of that, feeling again to be this little separate self. So the sense that I had it and then I lost it, and losing that state, that beautiful merged state, I thought that was it. I thought that state was awakening. So what happened was the seeker was born. Within the Dan character, the seeker was born, desperately trying to learn everything it could about meditation and yoga and reading every sutra, exploring everything, every tradition, every technique to try and get that state back, to make it permanent. And of course, when we do that, that doer, that one that's learning and acquiring knowledge, that's all the conditioned self. That's all our, we're adding to our memory. We're adding to our self structure. So we're actually feeding this spiritualized ego when we do that. And this spiritualized ego is getting stronger and stronger, and it becomes more knowing, and it starts, you know, creating films and all that stuff, and there of course there are insights coming through, but that ego it's doomed to fail. That seeker and that doer is doomed to fail. So many years went by as a seeker, and I kept exploring. That little eye kept exploring, and eventually ended up at a Zen center where they had this really, really rigorous form of meditation, where it's called the Zen Sesshin, and it's really designed for creating conditions of no escape for the ego, kind of like what we're doing here. It's really kind of what has informed this I Am retreat. And So this session, the it was just hours and hours of sitting on a cushion, and the little character was struggling, just dying on the cushion, just in pain, or and you know, trying every technique, trying every thing that it had learned, and nothing was leading to the awakening. The little self was it knew all the words, the teachings, all the great teachers had said, and still there was this separation, this struggle, and the teacher at the Zen center said, kept saying, you can drop the struggle. Just find out who that is that's struggling. You know, who's aware of that struggle? What is that awareness? Watching this little character struggling. And so, so the conditions were perfect to for that little character to fail in all its attempts to meditate. You know, the meditator, just failed on every level. This doer couldn't awaken, and of course, it can't awaken because that's the false I. So something in this process gives way. So in that experience, something gave way. There was a giving up. The meditator dropped. And there's a sort of alchemy that happens in the mind and body where the energy that was going into that doing becomes free. And so who remains, at the end of that? So I realized that the one that was trying, the one that was doing, was always that false self. And that I, the true I, awareness, has always been right here. What that little mind is looking for, it's looking for something. It's looking for a state. It's looking, whatever it's learned, past experience. But samadhi, awakening, is not that. So it's when that drops, when that is given up, and the wisdom of not knowing, is what I refer to as a beginner's mind. We're not looking to past or memories or anything we've learned in a book, anything we've learned from a teacher. So we realize that mind, that conditioned mind, isn't the tool that is used for awakening. When it comes to the truth of who we are, that conditioned mind knows nothing, and it can't know because it's just the filter. You know, it is Maya. When we're identified with that conditioned mind, that is Maya. So when we come to the cushion, when we engage in meditation practice, if we really understand this, we understand that this whole field of changing phenomena, which includes thoughts and memories and all knowing, if that's not it, then meditation becomes something incredibly simple. It's beyond simple. There's nothing for the mind to do. There's no need for that doer. So thinking about your meditation practice, evaluating all of that, it's just all part of the mind. Krishnamurti said that meditation, like the mind likes to measure, but we want to find out that which is beyond measure, that which is beyond measure. So we just keep going with intending to directly experience I amness, beingness. Just like in the Dyads, we have this intention to wake up. The mind, body generate all this phenomena, and we just keep going. We just sit. We just sit, and we keep going until we really get that nothing appearing in the mind is it. Nothing, none of this phenomena is it. But yet there's this clearing process. So we just allow it to be as it is. So if we get caught in any of that, if we're evaluating, if we're looking for something, it's easy to start chasing blissful sensations. Sometimes we learn to surrender a little bit, and and then that produces this bliss, or these absorption states. And if we start seeking those states, then it just becomes a game. We're just playing a game of sensation, but we'll never reach that cessation, or we'll never recognize awareness, because there's always this doer, the seeker that we're still identified with. So we find, there can be so many ways that we can distract ourselves in the meditation practice, and everything can become, something that the mind can appropriate. Even ideas like Turiya, or we even awareness. When I say awareness, if the mind thinks, okay, I know what awareness is, yeah, it's awareness, that's it. The mind will turn awareness into a concept, and it can masquerade with any term. Some people call it consciousness, awareness, primordial awareness, Turiya, the ultimate subject, or you know the the witness. Sometimes it doesn't matter what name we give it, but there's still this knowing, this conceptualization of it. So we want to go beyond that knowing mind into a don't know mind, to directly experience that awareness. Just be. So when in direct experience, there's no separation, there's no object, there's no thing being experienced. It's direct. That's what direct means. So yeah, so the meditation, whatever we're doing in the meditation, can just become another form of bondage, or just another level of mind controlling. So we want to drop all of that. And, so at the beginning, we're working with a meditation object. It becomes more and more subtle, where we have these stages of absorption and all of that. But eventually, we're moving in the direction of just being. So the best is if we can just be, then there's nothing to do. Meditation is just being. So simple, so beyond simple, that the mind misses it. So we end up in meditation um, at, at in this space of being, which is really what these non-dual teachings are all pointing towards. So we have these non-dual beautiful pointers like Mahamudra or Dzogchen, or in Zen there's Shikantaza. Shikantaza is just sitting or just being. So these are the non-doing practices, or the practiceless practice, just being. And when we're in this space of just being, um, there's a purification happening, um, just like in the Dyads, intending to directly experience. So in this space of presence, all the samskaras, the conditioned patterns of the mind start to come to the surface. And what's happening when they come to the surface, when we don't react, when we're just in this space of just being, just allow everything to be as it is. And it's like a burning up. It's like a burning up. We burn up the samskaras. The original meaning of actually the word for meditation. It's interesting if you kind of trace it back to its original meaning and original root. In Pali, there's the word jhana, which uh, if you're those in the yogic system, it's the Sanskrit is dhyana. So it's the seventh limb of Patanjali's yoga system. And this word, it also means Zen. Zen is also the same word. It's just the Japanese word for it. So jhana or dhyana or Zen or Chan, this word actually, in its root meaning, means to burn up, to burn up. So we're just being, meditation, the true in its true sense is just being in the now, burning in the now, burning up, just allowing everything to be as it is, just letting everything flow, letting that energy circulate. Or if there's resistance, just letting the resistance be as it is. So we're without preference. So, in the beginning of this process, um, the body mind, like these teachers like Dogen in the Zen tradition, his instruction was so simple. He's the founder of Soto Zen, where they do a lot of sitting meditation. That's actually the retreat I ended up at was a Soto Zen retreat, and his instruction was just sit, just sit. Whatever whatever we're doing, if we're eating, just eat. If you're sitting, just sit. And to just sit is to be here fully in the experience, unmediated by this filter, this conditioned mind. But at the beginning, most of us are doing the body mind is doing everything but just sitting. It's there's all kinds of activity in the mind and body, resistances, um, thoughts, beliefs, um, daydreaming. These hindrances start to come up. Um, so there can be, resistance or craving for pleasure or pleasant sensations, wanting to get rid of unpleasant sensations. Um, Tiredness is, sort of almost like a defense mechanism of the body mind. Um, you know, Producing daydreams, um, just producing random phenomena, whatever it is. Um, so these hindrances start to come up, or expectations. In Buddhism, there's this term dukkha, um, and dukkha is the chronic unsatisfactoriness of the mind. The sense that whatever is not good enough, wanting something other than what is. So this unsatisfactoriness of the mind becomes apparent, very apparent in our meditation practice. And so we just observe, we just see the situation in the mind and body. We get these insights into the way things are. There's this chronic unsatisfactoriness. Um, and, at the same time, everything is changing. So whatever preferences the mind has towards one thing or another, one phenomena or another, um, it's never enough. It's never satisfying because that phenomenal realm is impermanent. It's always changing. So if my happiness is contingent on anything in that phenomenal world, then I continue to suffer. That little I, you know, the one with the preferences, will continue to suffer because it's always looking for something. So, so when we see this situation as it is, um, we realize, you know, the little I, the one that I'm identified with, can't do it. Um, the character, as I've said, the character doesn't awaken, but we awaken from the character. And the situation is, waking up is analogous to falling asleep at night. Um, so, I can't really tell someone, how do you fall asleep? Um, how do you explain to someone how to fall asleep if you're trying to give them a step by step? We just create the conditions, at night to fall asleep. So, we make the room dark and quiet. We have our favorite pillow, or we pull up the sheets and make sure the body's the right temperature. But then it just happens. The falling asleep just happens. And, you could say there's a letting go or whatever, but it just happens. There's no doer in that. There's no sense that I'm letting go, I'm doing something to let go. No, it just happens, and there's certain conditions that make it more likely to happen. So awakening is exactly the same thing. So in this retreat, we're setting up the conditions to, you could say, to fall awake. Um, and these conditions are conditions within the body mind. So I've mentioned the conditions are, being in a place of single pointedness, just being here, you know, as we just sit, as we're just being, eventually that whirlpool of the mind starts to settle down. In Zen, they say you just wait for your mud to settle. You just sit. And, so there's less thoughts per minute coming in, less interrupting thoughts. So the less thoughts, the more single pointed we become. And, so this attention, just being with what is less interrupted by thoughts. Um, and we're also cultivating, you could say, equanimity or non-reactivity, just allowing everything to be as it is. So just noticing that habit pattern of the mind, um, preferring one thing over another. And we just notice that mind, and when we stop reacting, we stop running from our pain, um, stop reacting to those preferences, then we that part of the mind loses power, loses energy, it becomes quieter. Um, so the mind becomes more open. We let go of the knowing, controlling, and there's another aspect of this which I like to call it embodiment or somatic awareness as well. So as we're just sitting, we we start to observe this energy. Um, so when we move from the gross physical sensations, the the language structures that say, this is my shoulder, this is the knee, this is the body, this is pain, this is pleasure. We let go of that language structure, that whole perceptual apparatus, and we come into this contact with energy, which is just the field of changing phenomena. We're just observing change itself. So we can call it energy, but it's um, nothing different than sensation. It's just subtle sensation. So we're not looking for something. Sometimes when people hear energy, they think they're looking for something um, special, or but it's really just this field of changing phenomena, changing from moment to moment. When we don't evaluate it, it takes on different characteristics. That's all. So when we create these conditions, this open mind, um, you know, we're not really doing anything. Like when I fall asleep at night, I don't say I did it. I accomplished it. I did it. Um, so this doer, this mind, it's already doing, and there's just a cessation. of that doing. And there's a change, there's a shift, and it just happens on its own. And in all of the great traditions, they talk about it in terms of a cessation. So in the yogic world, Patanjali, at the very first line of the Yoga Sutras, he says, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. You know, it's the cessation of this whirlpool of the mind. You know, and there's different teachings, different words for this. So nirodha, nirvana, cessation. The nearer is always the cessation part. So the end of vana, nirvikalpa. So it's the end of this whirlpool of the mind, or the end of dreaming, the end of attachment, the end of false identification. And in the Heart Sutra, I love, you know, the Buddha describes it as it's recognizing the emptiness of all of these processes of mind. So we're not getting rid of the mind. So that this is an important point. We're not getting rid of the mind. You know, in the Heart Sutra, the Buddha said, you know, the awakened one recognizes all of these dimensions of mind, all of these processes of mind to be empty of self, to be empty of self. So he doesn't say that, you know, that mind is extinguished. You know, that it's, in order to have this human experience, you know, the universe is mind. You know, the first Hermetic teaching is that the all is mind. You know, the entire universe as we experience it is mind, the one mind. So it's only when it's my mind, you know, my thoughts, that I suffer, that there's this separate self that suffers if I'm identified, if I have those preferences. You know, those samskaras are in play. That language and perceptual part of the mind is wrapped up in an I thought. You know, it's my thoughts. You know, then there's suffering, there's maya, there's illusion. But when that I thought is dropped, then mind is all that is. It's unlimited. So when mind is limited, there's this I, the little I, the separate I, which is that limitation. You know, when it's unlimited, there's no problem. There's no resistance to what is. So that little I is just resistance to what is. So I'm going to continue on this theme by reading this is one of my favorite teachings, which comes from the Zen tradition. So this is about the preferences of the ego. And I read this at every retreat because it's so powerful if we can really let this land, you know, really start to recognize directly the preferences within the self structure, make them conscious, then they will drop. So this teaching is called sometimes it's called the Great Way. Um, it's also called the Faith Mind poem, um, or sometimes the Beginner's Mind poem. Um, and it's interesting, the faith mind in Zen, it has a really beautiful meaning. Um, in order to um, enter into or to let go, um, of our preferences, to let go of that I thought, we enter into this faith mind, um, and faith. I grew up with Christianity, and when I was a kid, I had a different understanding of faith. But to me now, faith is, um, a trust in this inner intelligence that is guiding us. You know, it's not a belief. It's not believing in something, but it's connected to this inner knowing. Um, when we drop our conceptual knowing, um, there's this deeper knowing, this feeling of alignment with what is, with the Tao, with the universe, with energies. Um, so we let go into this moving stream. So I'll read this, and it usually takes about 15 minutes. It's fairly long, um, and I invite you to just let it land in a way that we don't need to evaluate it. Just let it land in the heart, you could say, or um, beyond the mind, because it really is pointing beyond the mind. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. To set what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. When the deep meaning of things is not understood, the mind's essential peace is disturbed to no avail. The way is perfect, like vast space, where nothing is lacking, nothing is in excess. Indeed, it is due to our choosing to accept or reject that we do not see the true nature of things. Live neither in the entanglements of outer things, nor in inner feelings of emptiness. Be serene in the oneness of things, and such erroneous views will disappear by themselves. When you try to stop activity to achieve passivity, your very effort fills you with activity. As long as you remain in one extreme or the other, you will never know oneness. Those who do not live in the single way fail in both activity and passivity, assertion and denial. To deny the reality of things is to miss their reality. To assert the emptiness of things is to miss their reality. The more you talk and think about it, the further astray you wander from the truth. Stop talking and thinking, and there is nothing you will not be able to know. To return to the root is to find the meaning, but to pursue appearances is to miss the source. At the moment of inner enlightenment, there is a going beyond appearance and emptiness. The changes that appear to occur in the empty world we call real only because of our ignorance. Do not search for the truth. Only cease to cherish opinions. Do not remain in the dualistic state. Avoid such pursuits carefully. If there is even a trace of this and that, of right and wrong, the mind essence will be lost in confusion. Although all dualities come from the One, do not be attached even to this one. When the mind exists undisturbed in the way, nothing in the world can offend. And when a thing can no longer offend, it ceases to exist in the old way. When no discriminating thoughts arise, the old mind ceases to exist. When thought objects vanish, the thinking subject vanishes. As when mind vanishes, objects vanish. Things are objects because of the subject. The mind is such because of things. Understand the relativity of these two and the basic reality, the unity of emptiness. In this emptiness, the two are indistinguishable, and each contains in itself the whole world. If you do not discriminate between coarse and fine, you will not be tempted into prejudice and opinion. To live in the great way is neither easy nor difficult, but those with limited views are fearful and irresolute. The faster they hurry, the slower they go, and their clinging cannot be limited. Even to be attached to the idea of enlightenment is to go astray. Just let things be in their own way, and there will be neither coming nor going. Obey the nature of things, and you will walk freely and undisturbed. When thought is in bondage, the truth is hidden, for everything is murky and unclear, and the burdensome practice of judging brings annoyance and weariness. What benefit can be derived from distinctions and separations? If you wish to move in the one way, do not dislike even the world of senses and ideas. Indeed, to accept them fully is identical with true enlightenment. The wise person strives toward no goals, but the foolish person fetters themselves. There is one Dharma, not many. Distinctions arise from the clinging needs of the ignorant. To seek mind with the discriminating mind is the greatest of all mistakes. And here they use mind with a capital M. So this is big mind, or the unlimited mind, the true self. So to seek mind, big mind, with the little mind, the discriminating mind, is the greatest of all mistakes. Rest and unrest derive from illusion. With enlightenment, there is no liking and disliking. All dualities come from ignorant inference. They are like dreams or flowers in the air, foolish to try and grasp them. Gain and loss, right and wrong, such thoughts must finally be abolished at once. If the eye never sleeps, all dreams will naturally cease. If the mind makes no discriminations, the 10,000 things are as they are, of single essence. To understand the mystery of this one essence is to be released from all entanglements. When all things are seen equally, the timeless self-essence is reached. No comparisons or analogies are possible in this causeless, relationless state. Consider movement stationary and the stationary in motion, and both movement and rest disappear. When such dualities cease to exist, oneness itself cannot exist. To this ultimate finality, no law or description applies. For the unified mind, in accord with the way, all self-centered striving ceases. Doubts and irresolutions vanish, and life in true faith is possible. With a single stroke, we are freed from bondage. Nothing clings to us, and we hold to nothing. All is empty, clear, self-illuminating, with no exertion of the mind's power. Here, thought, feeling, knowledge, and imagination are of no value. In this world of suchness, there is neither self nor other than self. To come directly into harmony with this reality, simply say when doubt arises, not to. In this not to, or non-duality, nothing is separate, nothing is excluded. No matter when or where, enlightenment means directly entering this truth. This truth is beyond extension or diminution in time or space. In it, a single thought is 10,000 years. Emptiness here, emptiness there. But in the infinite universe, it stands always before your eyes. Infinitely large, infinitely small, no difference. For definitions have vanished, and no boundaries are seen. So too with being and non-being. Don't waste time in doubts and arguments that have nothing to do with this. One thing, all things, move among and intermingle without distinction. To live in this realization is to be without anxiety about non-perfection. To live in this faith is the road to non-duality, because the non-dual is one with the trusting mind. Words. The way is beyond language, for in it there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today. So I'll just let that be with you, and we'll take, if you need a 5 minute washroom break, we'll do that now, and we'll just go right into our meditation from there. Thank you. So we'll just take say a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back for group process and a little check-in. Yeah, thank you. Okay, hi everyone. Okay, so I think Tayama is going to cue people up for the Q&A. And for those who aren't familiar, sometimes, usually on my screen, there is a raise hand feature. There's a little raise hand button, but I think on some machines it says something like gestures. So the raise hand is under gestures, or it might be under more. So this Zoom looks different on different systems, so you kind of have to search around for it, but hopefully everyone will find it. So yeah, so this is an opportunity just to talk about whatever's coming up in the practice. These questions that arise on retreat. The idea is to clear the mind, and so it's important. So I invite any question that is coming up, but I'd also like to preface it. We want to keep it concise. So when we ask a question, try to limit the question to 2 to 3 sentences if you can. Don't. Sometimes there might be like a past experience or something like that. So we don't want to go too much into the mind, into past experiences. Yeah, just try and keep it really concise. And all questions are welcome. And it's also it's interesting. Like in this Q&A, we got a lot of feedback from our previous retreats, and it's interesting as a sort of gauge of one's own preferences as well. You can sort of see whether there is any resistance or anything coming up when other people are sharing and talking. Just see if there are any preferences coming up for you. It's actually a really neat exercise to see what's happening in the mind and the body as well. Yeah, and sometimes when we ask a question, I might sort of explore a little bit, and there might be another question underneath that question as well. So sometimes we can go into an inquiry and get to the root of where that question is coming from. And if you want to engage in that type of inquiry, you don't necessarily need a question. We can just explore directly in the group setting. Sometimes there's an energy when we do that. So
we'll get started with Sue.
Okay.
I noticed in this last 1 hour sitting that thoughts like nothing is coming up, why sit here, and wanting to check the clock. Mm-hmm. And do we just notice them and keep going, or is there another way of handling it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that measuring mind, it sounds like was active. So yeah, like the mind, the conditioned mind is always evaluating. It's always measuring. I sense that there's maybe a little dissatisfaction in that mind, like it's nothing happening, wants something
Yeah,
to
nothing
happen.
is coming up, and
Mhm.
you're ideally sitting, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So part of the practice is to really, make that mind fully conscious. Usually that unsatisfactoriness of the mind is it's shaping our life. It's directing from the unconscious. So we never see it, we never notice it. But you're starting to notice it now, which is great. You're seeing, the mind is it's on the hook right now. It's like, it's not interesting. There's no stimulus for the mind. So as we do this practice, the mind, it doesn't like it. The mind is going through this sort of letting go of all of the usual things that it's doing. It's not in its pattern anymore. It's not being fed anymore. So there's nothing to do except allow the mind to be seen. We just make it conscious, see all the stuff that it's up to, and just let it go through this letting go process. We're not going to indulge it. We don't push it away. We just allow it to be exactly as it is, and and sometimes we can feel, that we can make connections. We can see larger patterns that are coming up as well. So when the mind is sort of resisting or it's checking the time, really that's when we want to tune into the what's very subtle sometimes. Sometimes when a thought arises, maybe there's a little change in the breath in that moment. Or maybe there's a little contraction or something coming up in the body. So we just want to start to take in the whole pattern of the mind and what's happening, and just are you working with a meditation object right now, or are you just sitting?
I'm just sitting.
Just sitting, yeah. And how is your attention? Are you able to stay present for a long period, or?
Maybe after with this last one, maybe after 30 minutes or so, these are sort of the distractions that came in.
Okay. Yeah. So 30 minutes is a good length of time to be present. So yeah. So I guess, it's like in that the Great Way poem that we just read, these preferences are very subtle, and we just want to see them and just notice if that egoic mind is mediating in any way. And yeah, and there's nothing to do. We just allow it. That's just the way it is. But we can continue to just be aware. Who is it that's aware of that mind? Can you directly experience that awareness that is aware beyond that mind?
Do I work with an object? I mean, yesterday when we were working with an object, I was focusing on the breath.
Hmm.
Would that be the way to go, or would just sitting be the way to go? How do we know what is working for us and what is not?
Yeah, so really, you have to trust your inner direction with that. I would say, if attention is pretty strong, you're not getting a lot of thoughts coming in, then, we want to go in the direction of just being choicelessly present. If you can just be choicelessly present, that's perfect. That's really, there's less and less doing as we move in that direction. But if there's maybe not a lot of equanimity, like if there's or the attention isn't strong, then a technique can be really useful to help us clear the mind. And I'm going to be offering this afternoon at the afternoon sit. I'm going to be offering two different techniques. I'm going to be offering one in the first hour and one in the second hour. And these are two of my favorite techniques that sort of interrupt the habit pattern of the mind. So those will be things that we can explore and just see if they're useful. For some people, certain techniques will just resonate. It'll be exactly what we need in that moment. But at other times, what feels most natural is just sitting, and that's really where this ends up. Is just being choicelessly present.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
My question is regarding about how to continue with the practice after we are not here. Especially because after the Dyads yesterday, I usually, when I meditate, that's when I get answers for whatever I'm facing in my life, right? So I did feel after the whole day of quiet my mind, then things that haven't been unresolved, I got like awareness and changed the perspective. So I did feel the urgency to journal and to continue with that thought. But I don't know if that's kind of like coming out of the practice because I'm doing instead of like be present. So yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
curious about how to, because that's how I usually do it. So I'm curious how to continue in the practice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's interesting. When we really come to a place of stillness and the mind starts to, the little ego mind starts to drop away. Sometimes we get these insights that come, the more still we become, we're connecting to our creative center as well. So a lot of times at retreats, people get a creative flow and all kinds of insights come and they start writing a book or all kinds of things. For me, the films that I created came through my meditation. So it's a beautiful way to intentionally open up, the creative energies. And I think, when we go into life after the retreat, it's that stillness. Like if we recognize our true nature, that true nature is aliveness. It is creativity. It is energy. It's all inseparable from the stillness itself. And we're going to be talking more or pointing, I'm going to be pointing more to this non-dual space. But this is really what we want to explore in the Dyads. It's one thing to find this sort of energy and space when we're on the cushion, but we want to be able to take it into life. We want to be able to have conversations with people. We want to, we want it to be integral to life. And for me, the Dyads are an amazing sort of stepping stone in that direction, because we start to communicate from that place of deeper stillness. So it's not just about finding our happy place on our cushion, but we're actually expressing, allowing the stillness to speak, or allowing the that deeper part of ourself to be present with language, and be present with all of it. So this, you're getting to the heart of the matter here. This is really what we're going to be exploring through the whole retreat, is how to live from this place. Yeah, does that sort of answer, or how does that land for you? Oh, you're muted there. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it makes sense, but I just to kind of like recap. So then, because your advice is to continue with that flow, but just bring it into Dyads instead of like journaling by myself.
Yeah, like it's up to you. Like, so if there's a tendency with the mind to try to capture, and so if we're journaling and trying to capture these insights, then it keeps the mind doing something. Even though it's beautiful and it's something we might want to integrate it into life later. And for me, I feel like sometimes it's almost like these downloads start to come, and they just keep coming and coming and coming, and it's endless. There's no end to it. So it'll always be there if it's meant to come through. But I would say, during this retreat, being single pointed in our practice, just not getting caught in any sort of mind agenda will take you deeper. If the intention is to awaken, to realize samadhi, that can be sort of a sidetrack in that process. It can definitely go on forever. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jinting.
Hi there.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So my question is, if I feel sleepy during the meditation, should I keep sitting or take a nap? I find my mind, especially in the last meditation, is very noisy and had a lot of stories. Just like when I get to sleep, the mind is wandering around and have daydreams. But when I try to compress that, it's kind of like fight against the mind with mind. So so any suggestions on that?
Yeah, so that's a big one. I'm glad you asked that one because it always comes up at the retreats. So when you said when I try to compress it or to what was the word you used? Or you tried to do something to get rid of it? Yeah. So if you use the mind to resist the mind, the mind is resistance. So it's just an endless struggle. You're literally struggling to end the struggle, which doesn't make any sense. So I'll offer two kind of ways of approaching tiredness. So I'll approach it from sort of a relative point of view, from the self-structure point of view, and then from an absolute point of view as well. Because there are always sort of two approaches to meditation or to working with these things. So the first way I would say is, with any hindrance that's coming up, and this applies to everything. It could apply to pain in the body or anything the mind wants to get rid of. It seems like it's a hindrance. The first thing is to just notice that the mind has a preference towards this. So so the mind wants to get rid of it, and so it's labeled it as a problem or as something bad. Excuse me. So whatever's coming up around the tiredness, it only has power, as it only becomes really a hindrance because it's unconscious. So there are these aspects of that tiredness that we can just see. We can just make them conscious. So that the first part is seeing the preference. The mind resisting. Wants to get rid of it. It's like a fog or all these thoughts that are there, and it's so there's a preference for clarity and for awakeness. And then that pattern of whatever that tiredness is, there's a felt sense within the body as well. So we can start to really make that conscious. Like, when the tiredness comes, what is the pattern in the body, that felt sense of tiredness? How do you know that you're tired? There's maybe a heaviness in the eyes, the change in the breath. There's sometimes there's a feeling around the body. It's different for different people. So start to notice the whole pattern, in the mind and body, and just keep track of it moment to moment, and just start to make it conscious, and you can see, the attention of the mind can start to focus on, those different sensations in the body that make up the tiredness. So you're directing that attention. It's intentional. So rather than the attention, it just sort of flips to the dream phenomena. Sometimes it just goes on its own, but we can direct that attention so that we're tracking the tiredness moment by moment, and we can even track the intensity of the tiredness moment by moment. Is it increasing and decreasing through time? Is the felt sense moving around in the body? And when we can start to bring that whole pattern into consciousness, it starts to the energy starts to dissipate from it. So that's that's sort of a doing, or an intentional way of moving attention. And the other approach is sort of a self-inquiry approach. So you can inquire into the awareness that is here now, and just inquire, like, am I tired? Or is it this mind body that is tired? Where is it true that I'm tired? Am I this awareness that is just watching this whole pattern? Or am I the mind body? And when we do that, this direct inquiry, we can flip it really, really quickly. I've seen people literally looking like exhausted, but then when you do that inquiry, is awareness tired? I'm actually just aware. I'm just this awareness, and very quickly the energy can flip just like that. It's like quite amazing. And a lot of times in the inquiry, when people are bumping up against that sort of awareness, they're coming to an insight like that. So it can be a perfect sort of segue in the self-inquiry. It's actually the very thing that for a lot of people that leads to an awakening, is when the mind-body gets really tired. So in both of these cases, it's really, the tiredness isn't a hindrance. It's actually a gateway into deeper knowing of ourselves.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah.
I instantly feel the switch when I followed your self-inquiry. It was amazing. Just a quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
For people in different time zone, because I'm in PST, so I have to wake up 2 a.m. So that's a part of the reason the time is coming. Do you have any suggestions how people in different time zones should follow the schedule? Thank you.
I just, whatever works. I think the best experiences, I think, for people from what I've seen in previous retreats is when, if you can just shift your whole schedule, the whole sleeping schedule to sleep when the group is sleeping, and just try and sync with it. And even though it's daytime during our nighttime or whatever, I think it's more smooth if you can just shift it the whole week to a different time. So yeah. Thank you.
Raphael.
I think we've got, oh, there we go. Yeah. Hi, Raphael.
Now I couldn't, sorry, I couldn't unmute the.
There we go.
My general question is regarding anxiety. Yesterday I was able to do the meditations and stay with the group all the time, but today it has been impossible to do it. If there is any technique, or how should we deal with anxiety throughout the retreat?
Yeah. So first of all, what are you working with in your practice? Are you working with
my breath?
Yeah. Are you working with a technique, or are you just sitting, or?
Just sitting and focusing on my breath. I don't have any thoughts that are coming into my mind, at least consciously.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really wondering what can I do?
Okay, so the anxiety is more. It's not so much thoughts about something, but it's more like a body feeling.
Yes.
Yeah, like a somatic experience. Okay, so have you ever done the Vipassana body scan technique? Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, so that's one of the techniques that I'm going to be teaching this afternoon at the 2-hour session. So I'm going to be doing that one actually first, and so what that is amazing. It's an amazing tool to go into the body, and we're literally just scanning the body, going through part by part, and just noticing what's happening. So if there's anxiety or contraction in the body, we just notice it, but we just the noticing starts to transmute it and transform it. So we just observe. We have no preference of one sensation over another. With anxiety, it's challenging because it is. It's natural to have resistance to it. We want to get rid of it. But this is like an equanimity practice where we're just allowing it to be as it is. And by that allowing, it starts to transmute. It's like we, instead of resisting it, if we try to get rid of it or resist it, we just create more resistance in the body. So, paradoxically, the way out is by going into it deeper, is to just allow it fully and feel it fully, make it completely conscious. So that'll be perfect. It's an amazing practice. And just one other thing, if anxiety is getting really high, just lengthening the exhale of the breath can just activate the parasympathetic nervous system as well. So, if in a moment, if there's like an actual overwhelm happening or something like that, we just paying attention to the exhale, lengthening the exhale, can be very beneficial, just relaxing for the body.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we have, before we go to James, we have a question in the chat from Elizabetta,
Mm-hmm.
and it in her meditation today, when she started allowing what she felt like was resistance, it created a bunch of tears, which then she wasn't able to allow anything else. And she had a feeling that her nervous system was hypervigilant. So there was a feeling of needing to have safety in the body so strong that she wasn't able to allow anything else. So she just would like some words on how to handle this type of thing happening in the meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, as we go deeper into the retreat, there can be releases that start to happen, emotions that come up. There can be sometimes traumas that we don't even know we have can start to come to the surface. So, this is part of the practice. And depending on what's coming up, it can be overwhelming. If there are, sometimes there can be life experiences that were pushed deep into the unconscious. We couldn't process them at that time in our life. So now we're opening it up again. And, we can't always fully release in the moment. Sometimes it could be overwhelming. It's too much. We don't want to create a situation where we're dissociating or checking out in any way. We want to really be with it as much as we can. So what I would say is we just allow to the best of our ability. And if we do start to go into overwhelm, where the nervous system is getting overloaded, then we just back off. We just relax, do whatever you need to do to nurture the body. There can be sometimes we can unlock incredible amounts of energy that can come up. And, if that energy is too overwhelming, then, the ideal thing is to allow it, to integrate it, just be with it. But there are times where it's not productive. So in those times, there are things we can do to kind of ground that energy. So just, something like, walking on the ground outside in bare feet can start to ground that energy, or, doing something to move the energy, doing some exercise or something physical, just to relieve that nervous system. So so hopefully that answers that question. But often when these deep samskaras come to the surface, if it's something big that needs to be released, we can take multiple runs of it, at it. It'll we might feel it a little bit at a certain time, and then another time more will come and more will come, and it is like waves. At the beginning it might seem like a tsunami, but eventually the charge of those samskaras is dissipated over time, and eventually it becomes just like little ripples in the pond.
James.
Hi, James.
Hi, Dan. Couple of questions, actually. Just to continue a bit from what was asked earlier. After the retreat, when we are back in the world, and the modern world seems in absolute contradiction to everything we're doing here, how do we actually carry that in day-to-day life? And are we actually looking to let go of conscious decision making altogether?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay. So there's yeah, a couple ways I can approach that question. So, what we're really doing here, like in the self-inquiry, we can use what's happening, in the self-inquiry as a sort of microcosm of life itself. So so if we recognize being, if we recognize the awareness that is ever present, and then in that dyad process, when we're just resting, we know that we're the awareness. There's this ongoing sort of clearing process that happens within the self structure. So so even after a full awakening, like a kensho, that clearing process continues on. The whatever vasanas are in play and samskaras are in play. When we're at a retreat like this, like the vasanas are the tendencies for those samskaras, those patterns to get activated. So when we're at a retreat like this, we don't really have the conditions that will activate those vasanas. So we might have, tendencies around our family, and they only get activated when we're with our family, or we have tendencies around whatever, food or alcohol, whatever it is. So when those things are around us, the vasanas are the tendency for that addictive pattern, whatever it is, to arise. So life, when we go back to life, life becomes the testing ground, or the way actually for these vasanas to come up, and we can expect that to happen. The thing that always happens, like if people have a kensho awakening to their true nature in the retreat, they'll go back to life, and there's this sense that, I lost it, now I'm back in the matrix, and but that actually is the way that we purify the deeper layers of the unconscious. So the awakening is literally just the beginning of this liberation process. So whatever is going to happen in life, we invite it, because it's showing us where these vasanas are hidden, and it's an opportunity then to recognize the truth of who we are in those moments, in every facet of life. So in a way, it's like life becomes like a dyad then. We can start to treat everything the same way. We just allow it to come up. We can even start to, rather than evaluating situations and evaluating others, we can just observe, just be the witness, and then allow our own stuff to come up. Allow it to just spontaneously move, and that sort of leads into the second part of your question about choosing. So so the question is always, who chooses in life, and like what, when I'm navigating my life, is there an I thought that is choosing, that is mediating life? So the I thought has a preference for this or that, and if it doesn't get what it wants, there's resistance, or that the I thought is resistance. So so there's suffering in that. So when we drop the I thought, energies just continue. Life continues. Everything continues. So for example, the Dan character has, there's certain foods that are optimal for this avatar, so so there's a natural movement of choosing those foods, but there's a sense, the more awake or the more in a samadhi state we are, the less there is a sense that there's an I that's choosing it. There's a sort of just happeningness to all of it. So in a samadhi state, it's like you're watching this character, doing its thing, but the sense of I isn't wrapped up in it. It's all just sort of energies moving and happening. So all of that, it's like, the mind is like this current or river that is just always moving, and it's like, the ego, the I thought, is fighting against what's happening in the moment. It's just choosing something other than it's always against the current. It's always, opposite to what is. So when we drop that I thought, it's, the preferences are dropped. The evaluation is dropped. Comparing to past memories is dropped. And we're just with what is. And that current is still moving. It's still, everything is still happening. But it's that suffering, that resistance that is dropped. So it's possible for the choosing to happen without a chooser. The doing is happening without a doer. Which to the mind is, it doesn't really make sense to the mind, but there's a coming into alignment with that.
That's great, thanks. Could I quickly ask as well? I've found I've done a lot of clearing in time and so on, and I started to find in the Dyads that doesn't feel much left to clear. Not a lot seems to come up, to the point that I think my mind even starts to nearly create negatives as something to talk about, when it feels like the closer I get to it, the more it feels like I should just be sat there in silence. But obviously that makes a pretty boring Dyad.
Yeah, so that's great. And actually, what you're putting your finger on something that I usually talk about this later on in the Dyads, but it's already coming up for you, so I'll mention it now. Yeah, there's quite often this feeling that after we've done a lot of clearing, there's not samskaras coming up or anything, then it starts to feel inauthentic, for that if the mind feels like it needs to fill the silence in some way, it doesn't feel right. It feels like it's just the mind talking now. So we want to really pay attention to that, and that can be shared, with your partner. It doesn't feel authentic to just make stuff up. There's nothing coming up, and sometimes we come to this place. There's a sort of in between space in the Dyads, and Charles Berner, he calls it no man's land, where it's like the conditioned self has started to let go. And it's very clear when the energy is starting to go back into that conditioned mind. So it's not possible to just keep that mind activated, but yet we haven't fully come into the non-dual space as well. So there we might be hanging out in the stillness, and the stillness is peaceful. It's it's better than being caught in the illusions of the mind. But still, there's a deeper unfolding where we can allow, in the non-dual space, we allow everything to be present. So somehow we allow, the stillness is present, but yet somehow the stillness can speak, if that makes sense. So it's not that little self speaking anymore. And sometimes we can just kind of hang out in that space for a long period of time. Like we can't make that happen. There might be something, if we attune to the very subtle in that space, and it's really interesting how it happens, and it's mysterious. So I can't give any instruction other than, just keep working with the technique, and it's great that you're attuned to that, that you see the conditioned mind, and it's, if there's a tendency to, want to fill the silence or whatever, then, just go with what feels natural and authentic in that moment, and just see, just don't know, just be in a don't know mind, and just see what unfolds in that space. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ram.
Hi, Ram.
Yeah, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yesterday when you were giving like a guided meditation with your voice, the self was, it was just perfect, like the falling of all the koshas, like body, and then the energy field going towards the third eye. It was exactly following. In today's meditation, the same thing happened, but it was delayed. So at least in our Advaita philosophy, we usually say awakening is like in the live presence of a awakened guru. It just happens like lighting a lamp from another lamp. You cannot light it with a photo or a video kind of thing. So how important is the presence of, like, you are an enlightened guru, so how important is the live presence?
Well, first of all, I would say, what I'm pointing, I see myself as a signpost, pointing in a certain direction. And, for me, there has been an awakening. I'm aware of my true nature. And all I'm pointing towards is to your true nature. So the true guru, in these ancient traditions, they talk about the Sat Guru, or the true guru, which is awareness itself. It's pure awareness. So it's not, the true guru is not a person. It's actually your own awareness. So at the beginning, if you have someone facilitating who has realized their own awareness, you can see that reflected in the teacher. So it is like a spark. It's like it's something in everyone has a capacity to recognize that. So I would say, it can be obviously helpful. That's why we go to satsangs, or we have people in the world. You know, we interview a lot of them in the films, and they're beautiful pointers. And when we're in you know, a satsang like that or a guided meditation, you know, it can be easier to recognize that awareness that is ever present. But the true teacher is not any person, but it is actually that one awareness, which it's universal. It's not my awareness. It's not your awareness. It's the one mind when we drop this little self. So that's really what I'm pointing towards. And when you find that within yourself, you know, I think that the intention of a true teacher is to you know, so that you become autonomous. You know, you're not dependent in any way on, you know, endless teachings from another teacher, but you find the source of your own fulfillment and your own peace and happiness, which flows from knowing the self.
Oh, namaste. Great. Very good answer. In fact, I'm talking from Tiruvannamalai myself, so thank you very much.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Vienne next.
Are you there?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. I don't see you, but I hear you.
I just have a question, quick questions, not in this meditation retreat, but during my practice before joining this retreat, I have like, I don't know, like I get very emotional, and I feel like I'm home, like, you know, that feeling that I was lost, but now I'm home, and
Yeah.
I got very emotional on that.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that supposed to be happy or?
Sorry, can you repeat? Isn't that supposed to be what? Did you say? I missed it.
Like, you know, during the meditation, I mean, like we're not expecting anything, but yeah, it should be happy. But why I get emotional and the tear keep falling down, and I feel like I'm home. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was happening previously, but it's not happening.
Yeah, it's happening
Okay.
when I had the meditation previously.
Yeah.
Before the retreat.
Yeah. So the question is, you know, yeah. So that being home, do you feel that you're home right now in this moment?
It's like no, maybe because my body's tired at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is because of
Yeah.
the time zone different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I do my daily practice, it's like it's keep, you know, emotional
Yeah.
when I feel I'm home.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
So there's a very important distinction that I'd like to make. So when you had that experience, you know, that feeling of being home, you know, that emotion, you know, it sounds like it's a beautiful feeling, but all feelings, all states are part of the phenomenal world. You know, they come and go. They're constantly changing. So so if we're you know, the mind now has that memory, you know, of that experience, and it wants it back. but that was temporary. But what's possible is to inquire, in this moment right now, who is the one who experienced that experience, the knower of that experience, and who is aware here right now in this moment. There's an awareness that we can directly experience, and that when we awaken to this awareness that is here, that awareness doesn't come and go. It doesn't change. It's ever present. So what I would say is, the experience, when we have a beautiful experience, it's wonderful. We experience it fully, but we have to let it go because it's just an experience. And if we're trying to get it back, then, we're operating through the memory. We're operating through that mind. But who is here now? Who is aware of that mind? Who is the one who is aware of the mind?
No, I'm not trying to get that experience back. But whenever I have the deep meditation, my tear keep falling down, and the feeling that I felt I am home is keep coming back every time I do the meditation. So I'm not sure
Okay.
what does it.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I think I may have
But
misunderstood.
I'm not trying to get it back or crapping on that feeling or but I just don't know why do I get emotional every single time. Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting it's different for everybody. I think when we come to that place, sometimes there's tears. Sometimes some people will experience just this bliss. Other people, it's more like it's just this profound, exquisite peace. So it can, the experience part of it can be different for different people. Sometimes there's, just a recognition that I'm home, and there's just a peace. But the body can respond in all different ways. Sometimes in the Dyads, sometimes they'll have these incredible, it's like fireworks, happening, and energy and all kinds of stuff. Other people, nothing at all.
Yeah.
So we never know. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the answer. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Elisa.
Hi, Alyssa.
Sorry, didn't click properly. Hi, Dan. Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you so much, Dan, for holding these beautiful spaces and give us the opportunity to continue grow. Now, my question really has to do very much with the Dyads, and I actually came up because of what you mentioned regarding this, how we are when we are actually during the retreat, and how we do when we move into real life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you please correct me. I don't know if I understood this improperly, but talking about my sort of personal experience with the Dyads. At the beginning, for me, it was quite difficult to get into that when I started to experience this tool. And I went to a rave of different sort of mainly emotions of feeling very uncomfortable, confused, etc., up to a point that I was just develop a sort of giggles. I was laughing about this.
Yeah.
I went to, as I said, as a range of emotions. I did understand very quickly that really this is nothing to do with an answer, but with a state of being. And through the rest of the Dyads that I've been participating, that I wouldn't say that there have been too many, but there have been few. So now when the imperative is given to me, nothing comes up. Absolutely nothing comes up. However, I don't feel any more uncomfortable, sorry. I don't feel bad about that. I think it's okay. And I feel in peace and I feel tranquil about that. So my question is specifically related to that, in the sense that when you actually sort of mention it is a transition between this and the real world. So and to let in the real world to actually comes to let all these sort of things come up as we do in the Dyads. For me, nothing is coming up. So how I'm going to actually sort of relate one thing with another, and I'm a little confused on this point. So if you could please clarify for me, it will be great. Obviously, that I do understand the point of the observer to sort of, if we are in a very difficult situation or very stressful situation or whatever, because this is life outside. So just step back, observe, be the observer. This is very clear, and this is very, very, very good technique, which actually I am practicing. But how to allow these sort of things compare with the things that are coming up during the sessions of Dyads? I cannot see the relation into that. So you could please clarify for me, I would be very grateful. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was very clear what's happening. So, yeah, so when we come to this witnessing place, it is very peaceful. But when we so if we in the Dyads, like you've probably heard me say this before, but the witness is the last holdout of the ego. The witness is the last holdout of the ego. So we a lot of our practices and techniques, we come to this witnessing state, and there's a tranquility and peacefulness in that, but there's still a duality there. There's still a witness and what is being witnessed. So there's a further unfolding where if we can attune to the subtle when we're in that space. Sometimes there can be insights or things that will come up that are still in play in the mind. We're in that very subtle space, and things they can percolate up from the unconscious. You might realize that there's maybe a belief that is still in play, or there's some separation happening between subject and object, witness and witnessed, and there's nothing to do other than just fully allow anything to come up in that space. Just be completely open, and just allow the possibility of something new to unfold in that space. And when it does, the energies, you were describing some of the energies that came up in your Dyads. There's an aliveness that starts to come, and when that whatever that witness is, it's tangled up in the I thought. That witness is still part of the I thought. So when that I thought drops, then there's an energy that starts to come, and that energy is what we learn to play with in the Dyads. We allow that kind of childlike energy, or however you want to describe it. It starts to come through. We don't really. There's a not knowing in the mind what's going to come next. There's a spontaneity that starts to come through. And it's that spontaneity that starts to come alive in life as well. So rather than, the little knower and the doer that has its pattern in life, going about its whatever pattern life is, there's an aliveness and a spontaneity that we can practice it in the Dyads, and then it starts to come alive in life as well. And life will test us in exactly the same way that the Dyads do. Thoughts will come up, or resistance in the mind, or whatever, if somebody judges us for being that way, being free, then there's a little part of our character that might shut it down again. That part of the mind gets activated. So we get to explore it in all the different facets of life, all the different situations that might they might trigger different mind-body patterns that they'll come to the surface from the unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, because it's very important that you touch a point that as well have experienced during this, and not only this, what I'm going to say now is not just only on the diets, but as well on my meditation. And is that where at the beginning of the beginnings, we actually sort of started to think, who is observing this body? But then there was this observer, and the person who was being, or the entity who was being observed. But then we got into who is observing these two.
Mm-hmm.
But then another one who is observing these three. And so, there is a one. And yesterday in the diet, I had the fortune to have Bill, he's fantastic. And so he was asking me some questions regarding this. And I said, I think that I stopped completely going into the observer game, because although it has a beginning, okay, this one is observing that one, and then this one is observing the two, and so on. It doesn't have any end.
Yeah.
It goes infinite.
Mm-hmm.
So I never use, no now in my meditation, no now in the diet, this observer is you anymore. So I don't know if this is the right way to approach that. Not even as well in my meditations. I don't do that. I just go into straight in the state of being, and I lost completely, or I'm not practicing anymore this observer game.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. And
So,
when you just said, I don't know if this is the right way, and that's perfect. If you just stay with that don't know mind. If the mind, it feels like it's in control and it knows, that's actually not the right direction. So we actually want to just allow the not knowing, and there's an incredible freedom in not knowing. The not knowing is liberation.
Yeah.
It's like I don't need to know what's going to come out of the mouth, the next thing that's going to be said. I don't need, there's just allow the energy to move and to be free in that expression. And so the not knowing is perfect. That's whatever Bill was pointing towards is that it's this space of just not knowing and just a freedom to not know. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I did experience in the diet this freedom, because at the beginning, when I started to practice the diets, I felt very uncomfortable just with the idea that I didn't know. But now I don't mind at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is this liberation, which is, I think, very, very, very illuminating, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so thank you so much.
Yeah, beautiful.
And
Thank you.
It's great to be able to discuss these sort of things with you, and get a little bit of sort of guidance on all these sort of things that sometimes came to our minds, and we don't know, but still I don't know.
Good. Just stay with I don't know. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Louie.
Hi, Louis.
Hi, Dan. Yeah. Hi. I wanted to say, good to talk to you again and be back.
Yes.
earlier.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. So my question might be a bit similar to Alyssa's. It's like might be a step before,
Mhm.
and so during my diets, I realize so I mean I've been doing them so I always quickly do the reporting. Like I would do the reporting, but I always, because I've had experience, then I quickly go, okay, there's someone observing.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember like when I did last time, Bill came in as well, and he said, "Oh, we're more interested in the observer than that." And so I'm like trying to quickly go into the observer, like, oh, there's someone observing,
Mhm.
rather than reporting everything.
Mhm.
So my question is, how important is it to actually report everything, or to
Mhm.
just skip that and directly go, well, okay, let's the observer now?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a good question. Yeah, yeah. This is excuse me. Yeah, it's something that often comes up, especially if we've done, there are these subtle little knowings that can creep into our practice. So we know that, the mind is sneaky. So the mind, it knows that who we are, our true nature, is not in the thoughts. It's not in. So the mind might sort of just dismiss the thoughts. It's like, oh, it's just thoughts coming up or whatever. It's not important. Who I am is not there. But the clearing process is important. So doing both parts of the technique is really, really important. To not we don't need to believe, the mind. I think where you're at, the mind doesn't believe that it's going to find an answer on the level of thinking, but yet it can still be used as a reporting tool, to just report whatever's coming up. So, when I do the inquiry, when I intend to directly experience, what's coming up in the mind body, and that's all the mind has to worry about, is just, what is moving, and it can be surprising, when we really open to that. There can be more to clear, lots to clear, that comes up, and by clearing it, that's how we make the progress. So the awareness is always here. We don't have to find it or search for it, but yet, the clearing, makes this sort of human vessel transparent to that awareness. So we directly experience it.
Yeah, okay. I that gives more clarity, because I guess last time it was spontaneous when I got to the awareness part,
Yeah.
because I hadn't been there before. Like, so it was spontaneous as I'm clearing, like, oh, there's the observer. But now it's like a robotic, oh, but
Yeah.
there's the observer. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to sort of go back to the clearing process and trust whatever
Yes.
whatever comes up will come up.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Exactly.
I
Yeah. And
I
you
see.
use the word robotic as well, which, yeah. So when you see that, the dyads are getting repetitive. It's like you're doing what you've always been doing. That's important you can share that with your partner as well. Just the roboticness, and whenever it feels robotic, of course, it's the mind. It's in control in some way. It's repeating a pattern. So yeah, the awareness, has no pattern. It's just aware. So seeing all of that, reporting all of that, whatever's coming up in the mind, that is the clearing process. Yeah.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you, Dan. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So I think we will wrap it up here for today. So thanks, everyone. And just a reminder to, you can, the invitation is always to stay in continuous practice. So just remaining aware, whatever is happening, having lunch, having a little break, going for a walk, having a complete experience of whatever's happening in the moment. Just being open, just being present, aware. Yeah. Thank you.